It starts with dust, the kind that hangs in the air like old secrets, catching in your throat as you bend beneath the attic beams. The place smells of cedar and mothballs, a stale sweetness that clings to forgotten decades. You weren't looking for anything. Not really. You were passing time, lifting lids off cardboard boxes just to see if anything inside still remembered you. And then you find it. The shoebox, wedged behind a stack of brittle magazines whose covers have curled with age. It's lighter than you expect, and the lid gives way with a reluctant sigh, as though it's been holding its breath all these years. Inside, the content are ordinary. Letters written in a looping, faded hand, a dry corsage, a pair of cufflinks, and at the very bottom, a photograph. The image is warm, familiar, a summer afternoon frozen in its prime. Sunlight spills like honey across the scene, softening edges, painting everything with the kind of glow that nostalgia likes to wear. You recognize the backyard instantly. You recognize the faces, too. Friends, family. You feel an ache of something close to joy, until your gaze reaches a figure in the middle. And suddenly, the air in the attic feels heavier. It's them, not someone who merely resembles them. Not a trick of shadow and angle. Them, alive, standing where no living thing should be. Because you buried them 2 years before the moment this photograph claims to capture. Your first instinct is to search for the lie, a digital artifact, some clumsy splice of pixels. But the print is whole, seamless. Later, a forensic analyst confirms it. No manipulation, no chemical anomalies in the paper or ink. Even the wear along the edges is authentic. The only irregularity is buried deep in the metadata. The embedded timestamp points to a date the camera was not only unused, but locked away in a desk drawer in another house entirely. You try to reason with yourself. Memory is unreliable. People mislabel photos all the time. Maybe this was an older picture, misfiled, rediscovered by accident. But the other boxes don't let you hold on to that explanation for long. Because there are more, different days, different gatherings, and in every one, that same figure, wearing a slightly different expression, always positioned where the eye will eventually land. You go online, reaching for the comfort of collective disbelief. On Reddit, buried in half-forgotten threads, you find strangers describing similar moments. A wedding photo with a long-dead cousin in the back row. A class portrait where a missing child reappears. One man claims to have found his deceased father in a photo taken 20 years after the funeral. These stories spread quietly, then vanish. Posts deleted, accounts deactivated. A few link to scans on old image boards, where the anomalies aren't just people but objects. A soldier holding a rifle that wouldn't be invented for another decade. A watch face frozen at a time that doesn't match the scene's lighting. Shadows bending away from sun. Your search takes you into archived government files, the kind obtained through FOIA requests and later buried in online repositories. Most are heavily redacted, thick black bars swallowing entire paragraphs. Still, a phrase repeats often enough to lodge in your mind. Moment integrity. It's there in reports about classified military photo analysis, in memos between unnamed officials, in handwritten notes from unverified field technicians. And you begin to wonder if the real error isn't in the photograph or in your memory, but in reality itself. Quietly rewritten, the new version stitched over the old without warning or consent. Weeks later, you return to the attic with the intent to put the picture back, to seal the box and leave it to the dust. But when you reach the beam where it's at, the shoebox is gone. In its place, resting on the floorboards as if it's been waiting for you, is another photograph. This one is newer. Different setting, different faces, and at the center, older now, but unmistakable, the same impossible figure. This time, they're looking directly into the lens, their eyes sharp and knowing, as if they've been here far longer than you realize, and they've just been waiting for you to notice. It begins the way so many family stories do, with love, small and unremarkable, folded into a moment so ordinary you'd never imagine it ending any other way. A grandmother sits in the dim light of a bedroom, rocking her newborn grandchild in the crook of her arm. The baby's skin is soft but dry, peeling slightly at the wrists and ankles the way newborn skin sometimes does. She remembers what her own mother did, back in a village where medicine was memory and remedies were passed down through hands, not textbooks. She reaches for the jar on the dresser. Clear, golden, fragrant with a sweet, faintly nutty scent of coconut oil. She dips her fingers in, warms it between her palms, and rubs it gently into the baby's skin. The baby quiets. The air is heavy with the smell, with the comfort of the familiar. Somewhere else in the city, a different grandmother might be doing the exact same thing at that exact same moment. And in another home, the same gesture again, small, tender, unremarkable. But weeks later, the baby in the first house doesn't wake from a nap. The hospital calls it tragedy, but the records are clean, the cause of death undetermined. No article appears in the local paper. No segment runs on the evening news. But in corners of the internet where grief has nowhere else to go, whispers start. The earliest trace sits in an archived Reddit thread from 2011. The original post deleted just hours after it went up. Someone writes about their cousin's newborn who died suddenly, about the coconut oil they had used that morning. Replies appear from strangers, not just condolences, but confessions. Other families, other newborns, different cities, different years, but the details always align too closely. The same oil, the same application, the same inexplicable ending. Within hours, the thread is gone. Screenshots survive on archive.org, but the usernames are gone, the metadata scrubbed. You dig deeper, filing FOIA requests for hospital advisories from the past 15 years. Most come back empty. Either no such record exists or withheld under exemption. But one packet arrives with photocopied pages, so blurred you wonder if the degradation was deliberate. In the noise of the image, you make out enough to freeze you, a string of neonatal fatalities tied to unregulated imported skin products, the active compounds unnamed, the brands redacted. In the margins of one page, in handwriting that doesn't match the official text, are two words circled twice: Skingate. The more you read, the more the pattern emerges. On our /unresolved mysteries, a handful of users recall incidents their families swore them to silence over. In one, the oil wasn't coconut, but some herbal balm from back home. In another, the jar was homemade, passed down for decades. And yet the rhythm is always the same: a moment of care and act of love, followed by silence thick enough to erase the outlines of what happened. It's not that the families forget. It's that the remembering rots them from the inside, each thought circling back to the same question. If love itself became the weapon, what does that make you? Somewhere, maybe still in that same city, a sibling survives. They were too young to remember the day, too young to carry the weight of the truth their family refuses to speak aloud. But the photographs remain, and in one of them, on a shelf just out of focus, you can almost see it. A glass jar, amber and light, the lid sealed tight as if it's been waiting all these years for someone to open again. It happens in a place where funerals are still slow, where the dirt roads keep the cars moving in single file, and the church bells sound more like they've been coughing than ringing for the last 100 years. The service is almost over. The minister's voice carries thin in the cold air, a thread of scripture winding over bowed heads and folded hands. Then it comes, a dull, deliberate sound from beneath the fresh mound. One knock, then another, muffled but impossibly distinct. It ripples through the mourners like a sudden drop in temperature. The pallbearers freeze mid-step, eyes darting toward one another, the casket now half swallowed by earth. Someone whispers the word alive. Another mutters impossible. There's a shuffle, a hesitation, but no one moves forward. By the time a shovel hits the dirt again, the noise has stopped. The casket comes up unopened. The minister tells the family it was the wood settling. Others say it was grief tricking the ears, the way wind can mimic a voice you've been longing to hear. But whispers begin, moving from farmhouse to farmhouse until they reach the next county line. 3 weeks later, it happens again. Different churchyard, different coffin. Same slow thud from beneath the soil. Then once more, 3 identical events before winter ends. This time, the whispers carry names. The dead are written into obituaries without cause of death, and some names never make it into the county's official burial registry at all. The local paper prints polite half-truths, while the library's microfilm holds the real omissions. On Reddit, buried in /r/no sleep, our first-hand accounts dress as fiction. The only way the posters claimed they could speak without trouble. The details align too cleanly to be invention. The knock always comes in sequences of 3. Always stops if someone calls a deceased name, and is always followed by a sudden drop in temperature around the grave. Each post is downvoted into obscurity within hours. The account's deleted before anyone can follow up. The phenomenon isn't new. In the 19th century, before medicine could say with certainty who was truly gone, safety coffins were sold to the wealthy, fitted with bells or flags that could be triggered from inside should the occupant awaken. Some models included air tubes and speaking trumpets, so the dead could call out to the living. But those were designs for people who feared waking underground. These knocks come after the modern embalming process, after the sealing, after every safeguard we tell ourselves means death is final. A psychologist might call it an auditory hallucination amplified by shared grief, or something stranger, a bleed-through from another moment in time, overlapping with ours just long enough for the sound to carry. But the families don't talk in such terms. They just remember the way the dirt shook, the way the air stilled, the way something alive seemed to be pressing upward from below. In the last of these cases, in the far corner of the cemetery, one grave marker stands apart from the rest. Weather-worn, the engraving is barely legible, but if you trace the letters with your fingertips, the name emerges in full. It's the same name you saw in that attic photograph, smiling from a moment that should never have existed. She steps off the plane into heat, so thick it feels like a second skin. The airport is a single low building, its windows filmed with dust, its air tinged with diesel and with smoke. She moves through customs without incident, the officer stamping her passport in motion, so practiced it's almost mechanical. For the next 21 days, she is everywhere. In marketplaces where the scent of spices clings to her clothes, in border towns where children wave from rooftops, in refugee camps where she sleeps under tin roofs while rain hammers like drum beats in the night. She writes emails to friends, sends photos to colleagues, even mails a postcard to her father. She has the ticket stubs, the woven bracelets given to her by strangers, the sand still trapped in the soles of her shoes. When the return flight touches down, it is cold again. She stands in the same customs line she left from weeks ago, her passport open in her hands. But the entry stamp is gone. The page where it should be is blank, as if nothing ever pressed into the paper. She laughs it off at first, a fading ink, a printing error. But then she sees the exit stamp missing too. A clerk frowns, says there's no record of her departure or return. The airline manifest lists her seat as unoccupied. She shows her photos, her souvenirs. The customs officer shakes his head and slides them back to her. Nothing can be verified. Back home, her apartment feels subtly wrong, as if someone rearranged it while she was gone. Her emails from the trip are missing from her sent folder. The postcard never reached her father. The photographs she took show empty streets where she remembers crowds, abandoned buildings where she swears there were markets. One photo in particular stops her cold. A candid shot of courtyard fountain, and in the far background, just out of focus, a figure she knows she's seen before, grinning from a photograph pulled from an attic shoebox years ago. She reaches out to her employer to explain, to prove she was gone on assignment. The HR rep is polite but firm. There's no record she ever worked there. Her ID badge is rejected at the security gate. She tries to contact a friend she made abroad, but their numbers are disconnected. Their social media page is gone. In desperation, she turns to strangers online, posting her story on /r/glitch_for_matrix, where replies begin to trickle in. Some are mockery, but others are whispers from people who claim it's happened to them too, aid workers, researchers, engineers, all describing the same thing, the erasure of an entire journey, as though the world quietly decided it had never taken place. Buried in FOIA releases are embassy cables, bureaucratic fragments noting unrecorded travel activity among NGO personnel, cases left without follow-up, names left unspoken in official reports. A whistleblower on Twitter hints at an intelligence program designed to vanish operatives after sensitive missions, to delete them from both memory and record without the violence of disappearance. But the threads vanish as quickly as they appear, accounts locked or scrubbed. She begins to dream of the place she visited, except the details are shifting. The streets are narrower, the faces blurred. She can no longer remember the name of the town she stayed in. The souvenirs fade in color, grow brittle, crumble in her hands. Soon the sand in her shoes is gone. The smell of spices from the market's replaced by nothing at all. The horror is not in dying, but in watching the world let go of you gently, as if you were a name written in chalk and the rain has just begun. The lock on the side door is rusted, but it gives way with a groan that feels too loud in the night. The smell inside is damp plaster and rotting paper, the kind of air that clings to your lungs. Rows of filing cabinets lean at awkward angles, their drawers swollen shut by years of neglect. Ceiling tiles sag, leaving gaps that open into a blackness above, and somewhere deep in the building, water drips in slow, deliberate rhythm. You tell yourself the place is dead, abandoned, forgotten, but the faint, electric hum says otherwise. The security cameras above the door are still turning, still watching, their little red eyes blinking in the dark. You pick your way through fallen stacks of paperwork, avoiding the patches where the floor feels soft. Each room is worse than the last, collapsed shelving, books swollen into pulp, until you reach the records office. The desk in the center is the only surface untouched by debris, as if someone left it waiting for you. One folder lies open, and inside is a single photograph in black and white. You don't need to turn on your flashlight to know what's there. The image is impossible. It contains all of them. The smiling figure from the attic photograph, the grandmother holding her grandchild, the coffin ringed with mourners frozen mid-turn toward an unseen sound, the blurred aid worker stepping off a plane that never existed. They are all there, and behind them, just over his shoulder, caught in perfect clarity, is you, your stomach, knots as you notice the details. The room you're in now exists in the photograph, unchanged except for the angle of the light. The folder on the desk is the same. The air seems thicker, heavier. A flicker from the corner of your vision. The security camera above the doorway shifts slightly, centering on you. On the back wall, a set of microfilm cabinets still stands, their drawers labeled with partial names and dates you've seen before. The missing burial records, the erased passport manifests, the obituary without cause of death. You wind one of the reels and watch as faces blur into each other, names shift into nonsense. Dates flicker back and forth like a clock losing its mind. On a forum for urban explorers, you once read about observation loops, anomalies that grow stronger when you try to prove them, feeding on the act of being witnessed. The theory was dismissed as paranoia, but you feel it now, a tightening in your chest as though the archive itself is leaning closer. You came here as the investigator, the one peeling back layers of secrecy, but the files on the desk aren't about them anymore. They're about you, your addresses, your movements, your photographs. A grainy still from a street you walk every day, a blurred capture of your bedroom window at night. Somewhere, a fluorescent light flickers to life down the hall, though there's no electricity here. You can hear footsteps that aren't yours. The cameras hum louder, their lenses tilting in unison. The photograph on the desk seems warmer now, as if the faces inside are breathing. And in the back of your mind, a truth you've been trying not to touch begins to take shape. You haven't been finding them. They've been finding you, watching you, stitching you into the pattern one moment at a time. Long before you started searching, before you knew the first name or saw the first image, they already had you framed. And now the archive knows you're here.